that my cue? Am I starting off? Is that what it was? I'm sorry. I had forgotten. We just said it 2 minutes ago.
No, that's fine. We'll kick it to you. I think we'll maybe, I don't know, Brittany, what do you think? Do you want to give people a couple more minutes? Or you want to just dive right in and do the like setup and warm up stuff?
2 minutes to log in?
Yeah, let's give them a few more minutes.
Okay. 2 minutes. So we'll get started in about 2 minutes, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the best practices for teaching sex education virtually. We will get started in 2 minutes.
I'm regretting we didn't do this as avatars. That would have been so cool.
I know.
Although I would have been so weirded out looking at myself as an avatar. I'm sure I would have been super distracted. Like, my hair, my glasses, how's that possible?
Yeah, time. They made mine and I was like, that's not me. The rain.
Leah, did you need to say anything in addition to whatever Brian's going to say at the top or the end, or Brian's got it all? Or
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I'll jump in if something comes up, but I did want to let you all know it doesn't look like I don't need this control, but I don't have the opportunity to I just wanted to make sure you guys weren't hoping that I would do those things. I know chat box is something I'll monitor for sure.
Yeah, I think as long as both of you just help out if stuff gets busy in the chat, that would be great. We gave Brittany all the controls to do the back end. So I think we should be good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Should we get started? Does that work for you, Brittany?
Yep, I'm good to go.
Great.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Shape Maryland's webinar on best practices for teaching sex education virtually. Thanks for being a part of this. Thanks for registering. One of the things that a lot of people are asking for is the certificate of participation. And again, one of the things, as you see on the time, this is a 90-minute webinar. And so our certificates of participations will reflect that this was a 90-minute webinar. We are expecting you to be a part of this from 1 to 2:30. At the end of the session, I will jump into the chat and dump into a link. That link will be open for about 24 hours. We do have a summary, a survey that we would like you to fill out. Once you fill out that survey and hit submit, making sure that you do give us your proper email and name, because what you send us is what is going to be included on the survey, on the certificate, as well as how it's going to be emailed to you. So this is also going to be recorded, and the slides, the recording, and the chat feature will all be dumped onto Shape Maryland's website for future use as well. So if you do need to step away and you can't participate in the whole time, the complete webinar will be recorded and included in our website. So again, thank you so much. Thanks for Advocates for Youth and Brittany and Nora for supporting us and providing this valuable information. So thank you very much, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Brian. So excited to be here with you all today. As Brian was mentioning, we are coming to you from Advocates for Youth based in DC. Fun fact though, Nora and I don't live there. So we're two of the full-time remote staff members. I'm coming to you from New Orleans, and most of you probably know Nora from New Jersey. But a little bit of background about Advocates itself. We partner with young people, youth allies, in order to truly center and uplift the voices of our young people and work with them as their accomplices to ensure that they get all of the information that they have a right to, and it's our responsibility as the adults to ensure that they have. And so we truly do live and embody the rights, respect, responsibility framework, not only with our curricula, but also at our organization. So if you have any more questions or want to learn more about us, we encourage you to go check out our beautiful brand new website. There's a bunch of really cool resources there. And yeah, that's our organization. A little bit about us. My name is Brittany. I use she, her pronouns. I've been doing this work for a little over 11 years, and I have the absolute pleasure of working with Nora, and I apologize, there's a thunderstorm, so I don't know if y'all can hear all of that. Nora, who's also uses she, her pronouns, and is currently helping out in the chat box. So you're gonna hear from both of us throughout today's presentation, and we are just absolutely pleased to be here with both of you, as well as Brian and Leah. So thank you again for having us. A couple of housekeeping items before we jump into our very fun 90 minutes. This is not going to be your average sit and get presentation. Today's session is being recorded, as already mentioned. We are going to encourage you to keep yourself unmiked until we move you to your small groups. If you need a contact or communicate with us, please feel free to use the chat box throughout today's presentation. Nora, myself, Brian, Leah, we are all keeping an eye on that chat box today, so use that if necessary. There are also some, some like non-verbal communication buttons available to you. So if you need to do a thumbs up or raise your hand, those features should be available if you click that participant box on the bottom of your screen, and then you have all of those features available on the right side of your screen today. We're going to ask that you stay present and take care of yourself. I'm really big on giving ourselves grace right now. I know we're all balancing quite a lot, and just appreciating that you all have made the time to be here to work with us. And then my final suggestion is that if you have a cell phone that's nearby, if you could keep it nearby. We're going to be modeling a lot of our engagement strategies throughout today's presentation, and it would be really helpful, just as a quick little tip, to keep a phone nearby as needed. But as of right now, just sit back and relax. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague.
Great. Thanks so much, Brittany. So I just want to add my welcome to everyone here this afternoon. Really delighted to share with you what we hope will be informative as well as practical. I know many of you are being asked to build the plane as you fly it, as it were. So we hope that we've built out the next hour and a half with some high-level things to think about in terms of overall systems and architecture, but also lots of down in the weeds with some practical suggestions and ideas. Just want to share with you our learning objectives because there was so much we could cover. We want to be clear about what we plan to cover. So we're really going to try to provide a rationale about why sex education needs to continue during remote instruction, because we've gotten a lot of questions from schools about, can we just skip it? We want to really give you some strategies about how to make sure the instruction you are providing is not only engaging, but also fun. So it's not just, as Brittany said, kind of a sit and get. And then we've gotten a lot of inquiries about how to handle answering difficult questions when we are doing distance learning. So we wanted to pay particular attention to that piece as well. A couple of things we won't be doing, I always like to be super transparent. This is not on distance learning pedagogy writ large. This is really specific around sex education, which is Brittany and my area of expertise. So just know if you're looking for that pedagogy, we could certainly share some links and some tutorials for you on that. And also to recognize that we're all here to help and support each other. And we know there are a lot of very brilliant people in this group. So we invite you, if you have ideas, if you have things that have worked for you, to please share it with other colleagues in the chat box so we can continue to learn from each other, because no one size is going to fit everyone. Every school, every building, every educator seems to be kind of making it their own. So we really want to support each other with a lot of co-learning. So let's go ahead and look at a couple of group agreements. We just like to always kind of set the norms for our time here together. Really want to encourage folks to utilize the chat box, and when you're in small groups, just to make sure that everyone can be heard and has equal time. We obviously won't be asking you to do anything that makes you uncomfortable, and if that ever should be the case, feel free to take a pass. We want to recognize that people come into the space with a variety of backgrounds, personal beliefs, experiences. You're representing different communities and different student populations, and that's what makes our learning so rich and robust. And we just ask that everyone extend each other the same respect that they would like afforded to themselves. Obviously, if people share about, oh my gosh, my principal said this, or can you believe my superintendent did that, totally fine if you're comfortable doing that. Let's just make sure that we only have the learning leave, but those details, let's just keep to us. And maybe Brian can edit them out of the video. No, I'm just kidding. So it may want to be thoughtful, since this is being recorded, to be intentional about what you do choose to share in the small group and in the large group as well. And as you're able to, please minimize distractions. We know it's so hard to kind of be present for a long period of time. So we've really tried our best to set up today's session to really attend to the theories of adult learning. And so we're going to really chunk it up, and we're going to do it in a variety of ways. So you're not just sitting and listening forever. I think we would all just take a big giant nap. But let me pause here and see if there are any other group agreements we could add in for our time together. Maybe we missed, or a friendly amendment, or one you would like us to add. If you do have something in mind, go ahead and put that in the chat. I will pause and just give folks time to type. I've also been told I'm a very fast speaker, so I like to try to give myself an opportunity to slow down. So anything that folks want to add to the group agreements? I'll just quickly take a scan in the chat box. This is when I wish, like when you're texting someone, you see the 3 dots kind of going back and forth, you would know something's coming, but I don't see anything. So please feel free, if anything occurs to you as we move forward, to just put it in the chat. We'd be happy to do that. And we'll just gently remind each other as needed about these group agreements. So let's go ahead and just look quickly at what our agenda is. Boy, there was so much we could do. And we had 90 whole minutes, holy cow. So talk about teaching like a semester-long class, like in a, 100 miles an hour. So this is what we really thought we could condense down and do in a meaningful way. We'd rather do a few things well than try to do everything not well. So as I said, we're going to start with just some quick talking points about what the rationale may be that you could utilize if you're getting any pushback about why sex education should continue. And then we're going to really look at some architecture. So kind of what are the systems in place? You may or may not have choice around that, but we really hope that there's some thoughtful intentionality around what are some of the programs and some of the different features, because there's so many different shiny, distracting, wonderful things you could do. It's kind of hard to figure out a way to put it all together that's sensible for the learners and will help them engage. And then I think the high point will really be kind of featuring some of those different engaging technologies, some ways to keep it interactive for learners at home, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, whether they're doing it independently or with a group together. Obviously, we wanted to talk about questions, as I mentioned earlier, and then really start to talk about resources, both resources for your students and resources for you as teachers. We wanted to just recognize also, we're going to kind of chunk it up into these 5 big pieces. So you know what's coming, you know where we're at. We're not going to take a formal break, but obviously at any point, if you want to turn off your camera, as Brian just shared, leave your computer where it is. Don't take it with you for your bio break, but leave it where it is. Go grab something to drink if you need to, or stretch your legs, whatever you need to do so that you make this time productive and really practice some self-care. We are totally open to that. All right, so that is what we're up to. So let's start us off with our first poll. We wanted to just do a little bit of an icebreaker. So how would you describe the taste of your current week? I know we're not all the way through the week, but these will be your choices. We're going to put some poll options up on the screen for you. You can just go ahead and choose whichever one you feel like is your flavor so far of your week. Just a fun way to kind of do a quick check-in with folks. Oh, looks like salty and sweet are going neck and neck. I'm glad to see not too many bitters. I was worried about that. Or sours, but it's great to get a sense of where we're at. It looks like about 4 out of 5 of us have voted, so give a few more seconds. Great, excellent. So there are the results. You see that most of all, yay, we're having, for most folks, it's a sweet week, pretty tied closely with a salty week, and not so much spicy, but a little bit of sour and bitter. And I'm guessing that many of us have probably felt all of these emotions like in the last half hour. So because we know that there's just so many competing priorities and so much going on these days, it's really hard to kind of stay focused and really stay attentive to all of these big issues that our country is dealing with, our schools are dealing with, we know our students are dealing with. So we're really appreciative of your time here today. All right, so we can go ahead and take that poll down and go ahead. We're going to do just a couple of warm-up questions for you all as our adult learners. We would love you to just type into the chat box if you don't mind, just thinking about your level of comfort in general teaching sex education, not in a pandemic. Just imagine you're back in your you know, classrooms, you're actually looking your students in the eye again. Oh, it would be so great. This is great. I'm seeing a lot of people putting in 4s and 5s, a couple of 3s. Oh, I love that 4.5. That's fabulous. A 2 from folks. I appreciate that honesty. This is really, really helpful. It helps us know, just as we're starting off today, where people are at in terms of feeling competent and capable related to instruction around sex education. So it looks like from the midpoint to the high point of the scale, which is wonderful. Let's go ahead and do the next one. This is a STEM sentence. So when I think about teaching sex education, I feel it may be one word, it may be a sentence, no need to write a dissertation, but just kind of whatever pops into mind for you in terms of thinking about when it's that unit that kind of comes up in your health courses. So excited, pumped up, stoked, comforted, let's do it. It's necessary, energized. Oh my gosh, we should all like make a power drink, I think, with all of these slogans. This is great. Open-minded, necessary, prepared. Wonderful. Awesome. So no one's like, I want to pull the covers over my head. I'd like to move out of state. I'd like to flee. So that's good. This is great. So people seem in general enthusiastic about teaching sex ed. So great. Knowing that your curriculum that you're providing is really meaningful and useful. Absolutely. So we've got a bunch of cheerleaders in the room. I love it. I don't have to talk anybody into why sex ed is so important. So that's great. So let's do one last one. How about this one? When I think about teaching sex education via online learning, I feel, so now we're taking the sex education piece, throwing in the distance learning of the online learning. Aha, here we go. Curious, anxious, concerned, not as comfortable, right? Uncomfortable, unsure. So when it's like, check please, right? Like, get me out of here. Ineffective, not worried about privacy, right? Not sure where to start. There's so much, right? So a lot more of that anxiety, that heartburn, that like, oh my gosh, how do I even, think about wrapping my brain around doing this online? And so we hope over our time together, we'll be able to provide some really concrete things to think about and some bigger questions to maybe consider as a building or as a district around intentionality. So thanks for that. I think I think that's it. Okay, let's keep moving forward. So as I mentioned, here is what we keep getting, Brittany and I, in our inboxes and our voicemail, like whether it's a superintendent or whether it's an actual classroom teacher or supervisor, like, can we just skip it, right? Like, it just feels too hard. Like, we can do nutrition, we can do stress, drugs and alcohol, that's doable, but like, oh my gosh, the sex ed. So we wanted to provide you with a rationale, knowing in this group, it seems like folks seem super excited and on board with why we have to teach sex education. So I don't think any of these are going to be rocket science, but here's the first one for you. So really, let's think about our students, right? We know young people really deserve this information. They need both the knowledge and the skills, not just like memorizing useless information that doesn't help them in the moment make healthier choices, but we really do need to make sure to give them a comprehensive education around their sexual health as elementary, middle, and high school kids. And we know that someone's mentioning California. Yeah, absolutely. So California even made sure that their really specific law continued last spring, and it will be in effect for this year as well. So we know that some states have really been very clear about that. Other states, maybe it's a little more yes unless told otherwise. So it can be a little bit confusing, but we know that COVID really doesn't change that. So we can go ahead and put that up on the screen. A lot of people have said, now that we're in an era of distance learning, can we just skip that piece and we'll get back to it when we get back together in the classroom? But we know that almost even more these days will provide a rationale for why you could even think that it's even more important for us to teach sex education these days when everybody's home, learning remotely, there's a lot of social isolation. So let's go ahead and look at some of these talking points. So we know that young people are spending even more time, if it's possible, online, because now they're doing their instruction from school online, in addition to all the gaming and the music videos and the TikTok and the Snapchat and all that good stuff they were already doing. So we know that that provides a strong rationale for just the topic of online safety alone. So just to be thinking about, is that a topic I'm making sure I'm attending to? Is that something that's going to come up for me in my marking period in my semester with my students? So that's a really, really important one. We also know that without the supervision that we used to provide in schools, or even any of those after school activities, so whether it's sports, whether it's clubs, whether it's music, groups or band or something like that, there was a lot more structured time that was supervised. And so for young people in particular, for adolescents without adult supervision and that structure, they then, even in their small groups, socially distanced with a mask on, may end up in some situations that are potentially risky or dicey. That leads them to need to make some tricky decisions for themselves. And without that knowledge and those skills in hand, they're not going to be well prepared to make those decisions. And lastly, we know that social emotional learning, right? We know that young people and their mental health, just as it is for all of us, who are we kidding, is really suffering as a result of this pandemic. People are feeling more isolated, they're feeling more depressed, they're feeling more anxious. And so we know that social emotional learning is super critical, and that is one big important piece of sex education that happens regardless. So we hope some of these talking points may be helpful for you if you're getting questions about, should sex education even continue while we're considering all this remote instruction. So with that, I will turn it back over to Brittany.
Great. So we've acknowledged we have some really fantastic educators here in the room who are very excited about sex ed. It makes me so happy to see that. And it's also super normal to understand, like, taking this to a digital platform creates a whole nother layer. And I get it. When I do these trainings in person, I got it. Virtual, I sweat. I don't understand. Like, it's just so much more work and trying to make sure all the technology is working. And I feel like I'm a DJ touching everything at all the time. So like, if we have to keep teaching it, and as Nora just shared, there's a rationale. It's even more important, I think, now that we continue to teach sex ed. How do we do it? So let's get into some of those things on how to fix this issue here. And then hopefully when you leave today, these strategies are something that you can easily pick up and replicate when you start your virtual sex education instruction. So 4 things to consider, because for me, a to-do list makes something that's completely overwhelming a little bit more achievable when I can list it out. So these are the 4 things that I would encourage you to consider prior to teaching virtually. What are your architecture options? And that requires checking in with your school technology, seeing what kind of firewalls are present, those kinds of things to figure out what can you actually do. Do you have the ability to make those adjustments on your work laptops to have the add-ons? Is there an ability to do Zoom? Do you need to use Microsoft Teams? Like, what are your limitations with what you can pick? And once you've kind of figured out what's available to you, play around with all of it. Really look into the options and lean into that discomfort. I know for me, technology is my frenemy. I love it and I hate it all at the same time. And so the more that I can play with it and make it a little bit more my own, the more likely I am to actually use it. And it usually lands pretty well. So look into those options and explore them and test them out. I am very lucky that I have 2 computers at this point. So I will pretend like I'm on this Zoom and this is me being a participant, and I'll play around with that technology and test it out. But look into what's available to you. Engagement is key. I know as an adult learner and as someone who exclusively works with adults and doesn't even get to work with young people that much, engagement is huge, even for us. And, in person, I have some things that I can do to make things fun and engaging that just aren't available to me virtually. But there are a ton of amazing things that you can do to increase the engagement of your presentation. Sitting and it's very easy to kind of like lean into that Zoom fatigue, which I'm sure we're all experiencing at this point. So any way to make your presentation, your activity, any more engaging is a win. Answering questions is key. I know this is a skill that a lot of teachers are really excited about, or they're really nervous about it. It's incredibly important, as I'm sure you all know. And so we're going to talk today about what are some of the strategies in order to answer students' questions, because we all know that that's where a lot of the learning happens sometimes. And then the 4th thing to consider is to be flexible. Things aren't going to go well. You're going to try new technology. It's going to fail. You're going to excel. It's all going to just be different every day. Like, I don't even plan for the next 20 minutes. So the more flexible you can be and the more grace you can give to yourself, I think is key. So let's take a deeper dive into our to-do list here of things to consider when teaching virtually. So what are some of the platform options you might have? And you really should take into consideration students' privacy. For those who joined a little bit early, we were having conversations about what happens when a student discloses something, or how do we create that safe learning environment for our students to feel safe to ask the questions they need to ask and get the information they need, and also to allow you as the educator the ability to have the privacy to feel comfortable enough to do your own job. And so we really encourage recommending earbuds for your students. And then for you as an educator, maybe you want to invest in one of those really, I call them the Janet Jackson headphones, the ones with the over the ear and the microphone. They're really cool and I want some, hint, hint. But recommending some earbuds, recommending some earbuds for students enhances privacy for them. Then it is truly just you as the educator talking to the student, and you don't have that extra anxiety of, is there a younger sibling listening in? Is someone in the room who's listening going to take this out of context? And then it provides the students a little bit more of a safer environment as well. Another thing that you should think about is whether synchronous versus asynchronous would be the best fit for your students. And sometimes it might be just mixing both. So just as we have a lot going on, and I know as a parenting adult at this point, I'm balancing a lot. So while I'm home, I might have other new coworkers who are here, and having to take care of those responsibilities while I'm here can be a lot. And then we can acknowledge that some of our students will also have those additional responsibilities of perhaps younger siblings or making dinner or things of that nature. So making sure that there's some learning that they can do independently at a time that works more conveniently for them, or some assignments where they can do that, is very helpful. And then also mixing in that live interaction and FaceTime with you is also incredibly important when teaching sex ed. A couple more things about the architecture. Your privacy as a teacher is important, and we kind of touched on this a little bit here in the previous slide, but we want to make sure that you feel comfortable enough as the educator to provide the content that the young people need. So think about, what are your boundaries? What makes you feel comfortable? How do you create that safe teaching space for you as the educator? And then express those needs to those people who can support you with that. The more safe you feel, the more efficient of a teacher you will be. And then of course, we're going to consider the fact that there's all kinds of ranges of comfort for teaching sex ed. And then there's a whole different range of comfort when it comes to technology. So figuring out where you are on that spectrum for both of those is incredibly important, and trying to find those ways to address those things to make us feel a little bit more comfortable or confident for either of those spectrums is important. So reach out to, I'm happy to jump on a call or answer an email and help out with anything that might increase your comfort, because the more comfortable you are, the better it is for your kids. And then of course, once you find out what your actual options are, explore, explore, explore. I cannot tell you enough. Do a call with your family, check it out with your friends, find any way that you can to kind of figure out how this all works, and then make it your own. So with that, I'm going to take a second here and pause. I cannot see the chat feature, so I'm going to rely on my colleagues here to see if there's any questions in the chat box. I just wanted to see if anyone had anything around architecture.
So far, so good in the chat.
Y'all are amazing. And I know I talk really fast myself, so this was a good break for me to remind myself of that. Now, some of the more engaging, exciting things that you can take into consideration when teaching sex ed online, and this also gets to the privacy as well, is creating an avatar of yourself. So very common email that we've been getting recently is, if I'm teaching a condom demonstration to a group of students, my concern is they might take a picture. Next thing you know, I'm going viral on TikTok with my face and a condom or a penis model or something, which I totally understand that concern. So this is an option, a strategy that we're going to offer to you today, where you can create an avatar of yourself. This technology is unbelievable, and I think we're just pushing ourselves in the tech world even more faster than they already were, to kind of make up the fact that we're going to probably be home for a little bit. So these avatars are really cool because unlike the Bitmojis, these are like live avatars of yourself. So you will upload a photo of yourself and then it will create your own Lumi avatar that will then take the place of your photo on Zoom. So I kind of wish I had done it for you all today. I apologize. But instead of you seeing me talking on your screen, the avatar, its mouth is moving, it is moving, and then it's not quote unquote you who's on the screen. So that might lend to a little bit more comfort for an educator who has those kind of concerns. So definitely check this out. We're going to share the slides so that you'll be able to see this later. But it's really cool technology. I encourage you to check that out and play with it. I am now going to take a second here, and we are going to put you into small groups to have a discussion that is a real life experience of what could happen while teaching sex ed virtually. So in order to do this, I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen here for a second. So do not panic because you're going to get this information in a second. But what we're going to do is put you into smaller groups to facilitate a discussion. This is the scenario that you all will use in your discussion, and you're going to talk about how you would proceed from this scenario itself. So you have a 9th grade student who's had a particularly rough home situation. You believe there might have been a history of abuse in the home, but you're not quite sure where things are at this moment. And you're supposed to cover sexual violence in your family life unit. So you're kind of unsure on how to proceed with the student's potential experiences with that topic. So what we're going to do for you all, you're going to literally relax and just hold on, because what I'm going to do is send you to these really cool breakout rooms. And before I do that, I'm going to play with this technology a little bit. So if you go to the chat box right now, I am going to drop, oh, it's not available because this is not my Zoom. Don't worry, I have a backup plan. I always have plan B. Oh no, Mary, I sent that to you privately. 1 second. And just a heads up, I'm just seeing the chat room now. A lot of folks, your chat room may have defaulted to privately speaking to the host. So I may have been getting all of those messages and not seeing them. So I will go back through and check those out. But back to what we're doing here, if everyone could click that link, you're going to be provided access to that same scenario. And then what you're going to do is I'm going to put you into smaller groups, and then you're going to discuss for about 10 minutes or so how you would proceed if you were in that kind of scenario, utilizing some of those strategies that we just discussed. So if you just hold on for a moment, you're not going to have to do anything. Click a button and you're going to be transported to a breakout room with some of your closest friends here.
I think you were a former flight attendant because you say it all like we're going to get peanuts and a drink in just a second. I love it.
Here we go. See you in a second, folks. Enjoy your discussion. For anyone left in the main room, all you're going to do is click that button to join your breakout room. If you're having an issue, feel free to unmic and I'm happy to help out.
Hi, this is Kim. I was in breakout room 18, but my computer froze, and so I'm back in.
Okay,
But how do I
get
get
back in breakout room 18? Don't worry.
Thank you.
My pleasure. There you go. Anyone else, if you're having an issue with the technology, feel free to unmic and I'm happy to help out.
And you put me in a room, Brittany, because I think you just put everybody in, but
Yep.
I just came back in, so we could, yeah.
You're good. Yeah, I realized that that may only be a feature in the settings to do the file upload.
Oh, interesting. Because I could have it in my chat, but you didn't see it in yours to be able to upload a document? Oh, how weird. Well, you're so smart to have it both ways.
Just in case.
Oh, looks like someone's dealing with a child issue.
No.
Oh.
Hey, Ashlyn, no worries. Okay, all the breakout rooms look good. Making sure there's no room with like one person.
That's so funny. I love it when people are in as their kids' user handle because, right, sharing a Zoom account or whatever, that happens to me all the time.
Yeah. That's so funny. Oh, I do have one room. Gonna move you. There you go. No worries.
How many rooms did you create?
23.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I wanted to make rooms for like 3 to 4 people.
Yeah, perfect. You can do the same if you want to do the same groups or switch it up for the second round, but that number sounds great.
Perfect.
And is it okay if we just tag team any Q&A we get at the end that we haven't attended to? Okay, great. Is that still thunder?
Yes. Can you hear it?
I could just hear it at the very beginning, but then not again. So I had thought maybe the storm was past, but not so much. Oh, yeah. Always, right? Always. Always.
Right. I've only got one person who's had an issue accessing the document, so that's a win.
That is a huge win. That is great.
We'll take it.
I'm really curious what people are going to come up with for this one because it's, yeah, I think a common question.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what you're going to do with that QR code.
I know. Isn't that fun?
You are so creative. Oh my God.
Like, how can I model some of this stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
I've never recorded to the cloud. I hope it's recording to their cloud.
Yeah, I would think so. And do you see what was just put in the chat? Open my app. Cannot hear your conversation and my breakout room. Because I see them still, the same person is still in the main room.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to move them.
Okay.
Okay, they're gone. Oh, nope, they're still here. They might be on their phone. I feel like that's when it creates the most issues.
Oh, okay.
Hey, I don't know if you can unmic. I'll just try to send you a message here in the chat box. Okay, I'm just going to give them like another 2 minutes. Does that feel okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You're going to have folks just put it into the chat there, the debrief? Yeah. Great.
Okay, they got in. Great. I don't know why these make me so nervous. These virtual things. I'm like,
this is the part where I'm like, There's not enough antiperspirant in the world to. Oh my gosh.
Okay. I am going to start sharing my screen. I think I should be able to bring everybody back once I do that. Share. Breakout rooms. Yes, it worked. Okay. Right. Close them out. Hey folks, welcome back. We're just going to give everyone about 60 seconds to make that journey back to the main room. Welcome back, folks. We're just giving everyone a few seconds to join back into the main room. They're having some good discussions, but I see them coming back. "15 seconds.
I always love how that like cuts you off wherever you're at. Like, oh, you're done. If only we could have that in person. Oh, sorry. Moving on.
Conversation's over. Hey folks, welcome back. So excited to have y'all and excited to hear what you all talked about. So if you want to just drop it into the chat box, some of your ideas or thoughts that you all came up with as a group on how you would proceed in a situation like this. So just go ahead and use your chat box feature to share what are some things you might do. And I apologize, Nora, but I can't see it. So if you see anything and want to share, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to read out as I'm guessing people are typing. So Arden said, bringing in guidance.
Smart.
Great idea. Christina said, finding individual information and using school resources, case manager, social worker, contact parents when suggested. Okay. Andy talking about it's all about levels of support in place, pre and post. Mary also talking about refer to our guidance.
Yeah.
Courtney saying include the counselor, maybe co-teaching, establishing ground rules, make sure that young people know they have support to step up to. Heather talking about letting students know the topic ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Mary's talking about if we suspect abuse to make sure to report it.
Right.
Maureen talking about self-care, build privacy, connect to counselors, camera off if folks need a break. Elizabeth mentioning kids needing earbuds for confidential issues. Alex talking about building relationships with students, making resources as accessible as possible. Anne mentioning do a poll ahead of time on the subject matter to assess comfort. Great.
Right.
Andy talking about in my district, a student like this might opt out or might communicate in advance with that student before the lesson to see what level of comfort exists.
Wow, y'all are amazing.
Yeah, there's more. Is that okay to keep going?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay. Leah's talking about making sure to utilize trauma-informed abuse prevention.
Yep.
Patricia, definitely take care of child abuse issues first and foremost to establish a, quote, safe class. Great. Erin talking about building proactive relationships and protocols with counselors and other supportive adults. Kimberly mentioning to remind them about the right to pass if they're uncomfortable. Patricia talking, didn't finish above, but kids need to know that they are safe. Yeah. So Caitlin talking about, I'm going to do a virtual field trip and teaching from our mental health facility during the depression anxiety lesson, and then crisis intervention facility during abuse healthy relationship lesson. Wow, that's awesome.
The brilliance in the chat box. Y'all are amazing. Those are all fantastic ways to proceed if you find yourself in that situation. And it gives me such excitement and joy knowing that young people have you all. So thank you so much for participating in those small group discussions and sharing your brilliance with us here. Perfect. So here's another thing that we might encounter when we're teaching sex ed virtually. it can be really boring sometimes and exhausting sharing at a screen. Like, I know it makes me a little bit tired. So we want to make sure that we're engaging students while they're remote. And so if you are utilizing Zoom, if that is part of your architecture, there are so many fantastic features in Zoom, and I always love to say I feel like we've only breached the surface of what Zoom can do. So breakout rooms is a really great strategy you should look into. It's actually a lot easier to do than what it feels like. And it increases that amount of like comfort, especially for those of us who are a little bit more introverted. Being able to talk in a smaller group and like have those discussions is incredibly helpful. Polls is an option that's available through Zoom that's really fun and engaging. The whiteboard, this is a really cool feature. You can find it under sharing your screen, where folks are able to all manipulate the same board and write and stamp and annotate at the same time. And it's a really great way to do brainstorms like you would in a regular classroom. Emoji voting or those nonverbal communicators, really great fun, and they're improving. So every time that Zoom updates, I find I have new emojis, and it's so much fun to throw those up while I'm talking or while others are talking. So as the educator, seeing those thumbs up, or the hearts or confetti, it's a really fun way to engage with your learners. And then of course, sharing your screen as I'm doing now so you could see my presentation. There are also really cool things you can do. So when you share your screen, there's an advanced setting. I can play music for you all through sharing my screen. I can show you something on my cell phone. Really play around and get to know your architecture, because there's so much tools and engagement strategies there that because they know we're all online and trying to figure out better ways to make it more fun. Some other things to consider include Mentimeter. This is a really cool technology that is actually really easy, which I don't usually give things that kind of stamp of approval, to increase engagement with your participants. Interactive Google Slides. I just did an amazing presentation with a colleague who really took it to the next level of how you can engage with your learners via interactive Google Slides. And it allows folks to be able to vote and to manipulate the slides while you are teaching. So it's a really great tool. TikTok, I'm a really big fan of it. I think it's a great tool to use while teaching. I think it gets the young people engaged and involved, and then they can share it with their peers. So it's a really fun way to have them kind of assess what they've learned. Kahoot or Quizzes is really awesome too. Those are like for our competitive folks, that's me, who want to play games and win prizes, see who's winning, who's on the leaderboard. Check that out. And then as an educator, I know Quizzes for sure, they offer you completely free access to their software right now. So check that out. And then Snapchat filters. I'm going to show you some fun things you can do with those when you have the most appropriate lessons that encourage a little bit more of like that brevity, as opposed to like, you know, the tougher topics we include. So Mentimeter here is all about creating interactive presentations wherever you are, according to them. But really it's about polls and quizzes and word clouds, and it's actually really easy. Something that I love about Mentimeter is that once you create your quizzes and your polls and stuff, then you can create a QR code to give access to your students. So the issue that I find sometimes is when you're presenting and you're sharing your screen and then you ask folks to click a link and then they go to another page and they're away from this screen, it can be a bit problematic getting folks back if you can't just close out a breakout room. So we're gonna play with this right now. Earlier when I asked you to take your phones out and keep those nearby, I'm gonna ask you to turn your phone on right now and then put your camera, just open your camera up and point it at the screen. A little file should pop up at the top of your phone. Click that, and then I would love for you to participate in my fun little quiz on what are the words you think of when you think of coffee. And this is something that's really cool because then you can integrate this into your presentation and it just makes it far more engaging for our young people. So I'm gonna take a breath here for about 20 seconds and let you all check out that really cool quiz and this feature here so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Awesome. And you can continue to play with that after we're done with today's presentation. It'll be available for the next day or so. So it's a really cool feature. I encourage you to check that out, and just wanted to give you a deeper dive there. Google Slides, so cool. So this requires a little bit more of like the setup in advance, where you have to create a template of your slides that allows for engagement. And what's really cool about this is that I would encourage this for probably your older students, middle school and high school, where they are able to, you share the link to your Google slide presentation, and then they are going to be able to manipulate the slides as is. So while it does require a little bit more pre-work in advance, it ultimately makes it a far more interactive experience, not only for you as the educator, but also for the students. The one tip that I will give for this is to create a master slide deck for yourself that no one can touch. So all you have to do for that is to make a copy of that. And so you only share one link, and then you always have a clean version, because as people start to play around with your interactive Google Slides, it then saves it immediately. So just always remember to create a master. TikTok, I don't even know if there's anything. I feel like that's it. That's the sentence. TikTok's fantastic. I'm a huge fan of it. The videos are really great. And I think it's just a great assessment tool to check in with young people. And then, you know, I think it allows them the ability to share with one another what they're learning and kind of demonstrate it in a more artistic way. So be encouraged to play around with it. It's a lot of fun. And then, of course, Kahoot. I believe it's free for educators. Double check that. Quizzes, I know for sure, but really fun, engaging games. And then you can keep a leaderboard going. You can tell who's winning, and it's all about who answers the question correctly as fast as possible. So this is just another really fun way to ensure that not only they're having fun, but they're also understanding the content as well. Snapchat filters. Now, I really do enjoy these while working in Zoom when it is appropriate. So when I'm talking about sexual violence, maybe not the best time to teach as a potato, but it could be really fun when you're having some less serious lessons to add this add-on to your Zoom account. And so this is all about going to Snapchat. You go to it online as opposed to using the app itself. You can then add this to your Zoom menu, and then you can create these filters for yourself to actually use while teaching via Zoom and other platforms. And with that, I am going to share the brilliance of I think he's my best friend in my head, but Nora's son, Dylan, created this just to kind of give you all an idea of how cool it could be. Oh no, it's saying media unavailable on mine. Oh no.
He will be thrilled because he's like, Mom, you're going to use that in your training today? What are you doing? You're killing me. So he will be much relieved that that technology did not work.
We're going to demonstrate giving ourselves some grace. And I feel bad because this was the coolest video Dylan made. So definitely play around with that. Snapchat filters can be a lot of fun for young people as well as for you as an educator.
Awesome.
So
great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. And I love seeing in the chat, I don't know, Brittany, if you can pop it up, you may not be able to, but people are just sharing all kinds of really cool ideas. I'm like taking furious notes to try to make sure we can encapsulate all of this. So one of the things that we're going to do, Brian mentioned that we're going to give you a copy of the slides. You're going to get a link to the recording, and also Advocates is preparing one pager with all of this information laid out for folks about these 5 chunks pieces of it. So we will make sure to go back and add in the recommendations that we're seeing in the chat so it's really complete. And then we'll share that with Brian so he can put it up on the Shape Maryland website so that everybody can get access to that and we don't have to all just, you know, try to furiously capture all this great information. So then what about all these questions? Holy cow. I know that oftentimes when we're in the classroom, we can get overwhelmed and our question boxes are overflowing and we never have enough time. But answering questions when we're in a remote instruction setting definitely brings up some new and different challenges. So we want to get you into some small groups again, but let's go ahead and look at the scenario, and we're going to try a different way to have you capture the scenario. So let me read it through first and then I'll give you the direction. So imagine that you have 8th graders. I know that's not the grade that everybody teaches. So just for right now, imagine you have 8th graders. You know they generally always have a lot of questions during your unit on family life. teaching remotely, you want to be ready to set up a way for them to ask questions without having to share any identifying information like a school email or a username or anything like that. So in your small groups, what I'd like you to do is think about what options you already know about or maybe have used even last spring to set up a way for your students to ask questions anonymously. And since you might still have your camera available, instead of doing something fancy like a Google Doc in the chat, I'd love you to try just taking a picture of this screen right now to capture this scenario so that when you get put into your small group in just a couple of minutes, you'll be able to refer to that picture if you forget any of the details of the scenario as you're discussing. So go ahead and take a picture of the screen so that you've got that little scenario handy for yourself. And then Brittany's going to do her amazing magic and get you all into some small groups again. Give you just like 5-10 minutes to kind of talk about what are some of the different ways that you could get questions from your students without them having to identify anything about themselves. So with that said, I will let Brittany extend those invitations into small groups and we will gather back together in just a few minutes. So just as with last time, I see we have about 15 people still in the main room. If you have stepped away from your computer or having any tech issues, just click on accepting the invitation to join a small group. If you're having tech issues, feel free to take yourself off mute and we can chat with you to kind of problem solve what may be going on. Some of you may need to take a break and step away or something may have come up and that's fine too, but we're available if you need help.
I was kicked out of my session, so I'm trying to get back into my room. I think it was breakout room number 19, if that helps you.
Sending there now.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Liz. I love that basketball emoji. That's so cute. Great, Kelly from Kansas. Off you go to your next thing. Thanks so much for being with us for what you could today. I love there's so much knowledge in that chat box. I'm like copiously taking notes. I know the chat doesn't always get saved, so I'll make sure to follow up on that. Super cool.
Great. Making sure there's not people who are by themselves or.
I know, it's always like, I'm gonna have a monologue about. I don't think this one will take a ton of time. So maybe like another 3-4 minutes, I think. Maybe. I don't know. I'm always like, I process things way differently than others. So I'm like, come on, people. Yeah. But I want to make sure that people chew on this a little bit. It seems like this is a very learned group. I feel like we're, you know, learning as much from them as we may be offering them. So that's great.
Yeah, this is a really great group.
We don't have a ton of content left, so we might have a good amount of time to do some Q&A if it comes up and or end a couple minutes early. So yeah, we'll just see how it lands.
Great. I'll let them know like 3 more minutes.
Sure.
I know I talk so fast and I'm like, don't talk so fast.
I find that on the East Coast, I don't get as much pushback as when I'm in like the Midwest, or even in the Southeast, I find, but yes, I have to be aware of that.
Yeah, I have to do better. There was an interpreter once who was like, slow down,
Oh
please,
no.
ma'am. Sorry.
Yeah, I've only had that one time too, and I was like hyper aware of my speed. Yeah. I was like, oh, not good.
Great. Hey, Deb, did you get knocked out? And if you're talking, you might be unmiked.
All right, you want to go ahead and close them if that works for
Sure.
you? Hey, I see some folks coming back. Welcome, welcome everyone. We are just at the 60-minute in mark, so folks need to stand up and stretch or roll your neck or your shoulders or run and grab some water, anything at all to make yourself more comfortable. We have about 30 minutes left, but I want to recognize that 60 minutes of content is a lot for folks. So please do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. I know this is a kind of a long stretch here, so just waiting for the rest of the groups to come on back. We'll, I'm sure, glean lots of really cool ideas from this. We were just chatting about how advanced folks seem in terms of like, y'all got it going on. This is great. Great. So it looks like almost everyone has rejoined the group again. Thanks so much. I hope you had a productive conversation, or maybe you were chatting about other world events, who knows. But anyway, I would love to hear in the chat box again, ideas that came up for you or you heard from colleagues in your small group about where and how you could manage answering some anonymous questions, how you could set that up. So Courtney talking about using an anonymous Google form, Megan talking about using Poll Everywhere, right? Absolutely. This is great. You're doing the next section for me. I love it. So this, I'm just gonna take a little nap here. This is awesome. A Google form, yep, anonymous Google form. So I'm so glad people are familiar with that because that's a really important feature that's a little bit hidden. Mentimeter, yep, I think we're gonna love that, absolutely, to email the teacher directly. So we'd have to figure out a way that they wouldn't have to use their email address, or else it might be obvious who it was coming from, unless there was another idea behind that that Liz was mentioning. Padlet, set up as anonymous, then teacher must approve before it posts to all. Jamboard, awesome, Brian, tell us more about that one. Pear Deck, Mary saying you can preview responses before you post live to the rest of the class and delete anything that's inappropriate. That's so key, right? Because we don't need all those slang words and all that kind of craziness that distracts folks. Yes, so Heather was asking, I wonder if you could do that on Padlet, and someone else already responded, yes, you could. Amy talking about WooClap, I'm sure not saying that right, for word clouds, polls, and brainstorming. This is wonderful. Great. Oh my gosh, all these brilliant ideas. Like seriously, people, I'm gonna nap and like you all just teach each other. I swear teachers are like the smartest people that ever existed. So this is great. Keep the ideas coming in the chat box. I think there's a lot of commonality with experiences. So let me just go ahead and share a couple of the ideas we had, I think many of which you all have already come up with, so this is perfect. We know how really important it is to make sure we've figured out these techniques to allow students to answer and ask those questions, because the questions you get when they have to put their names on them are super different than the questions when they're anonymous, obviously, as you know. Go ahead, let's go to the next one. And someone's got a little dog that's barking, so maybe put yourself on mute if you don't mind. Obviously, we know it's critical to use one of these techniques. So as people have already said, we'll show you how to set the Google Doc setting to anonymous in a slide coming up. Slido is another one I haven't seen mentioned yet, but very similar to Poll Everywhere, which someone already mentioned. So let me just show you a few of these techniques. So here, if you wanted to set up like a virtual question box, as folks have mentioned already, here's just where it would be in the settings, just so you have a visual. I know for me, it's really helpful to kind of know what I'm looking for. And instead of putting the check next to collect email addresses, here you would want to just put next to limit to one response. And then they don't have to necessarily connect it to their Gmail address or any kind of email that may be associated with their school account. So that allows you to set up something that's anonymous, which is really wonderful. It seems like folks know how to do that in forms as well. Here's the next one that I'm not sure people were as familiar with. We just got this from another group that we work with, similar to Poll Everywhere, Slido. So it's SLI.do. I just know that because I did it wrong the first couple of times and was like, where's this website? So this is where you can find it. It's a great way to do anonymous polling. You can do it for free. There's a lot of opportunity here. So something to check out if you're looking for something new and different. And then the next one folks already mentioned, Poll Everywhere. It's funny, I used to use this just during my sessions to kind of take the quick pulse of the group without anybody having to acknowledge what their individual response was. So you can do it and it sends up a word cloud. You can do it and it can be a Likert scale or it can be a bar graph. It can also collect open-ended responses. I would just make sure to do it in a way that you can see those responses first and then be able to respond to them. So it's not that everyone's anonymous questions get posted in front of the whole group, because that could be challenging if someone's asking either a personal question with identifying information or they're asking a question that you may want to filter or reframe, shall we say, away from the slang. Here's a couple of other things to keep in mind around answering difficult questions. A lot of people have said like, well, wait a second, if they're all at home, they can Google how to figure out where to go get a test or where to get birth control or where to, go find a support group. But actually that information is even more critical now for young people to have because of that sense of isolation, because of not being able to necessarily in person connect with people, which we know for many of us is really, really critical, that sense of connection. So it's really important to not only think about answering their questions, but also think about how can we connect them to existing community resources, not just about sexual health, but about lots of topics. And here's one that I thought was really great. Actually, Brian, it's from a teacher in your district. I'll show you in just a second, but we know that some of those resources are really important to give, not just when you're on the family life unit in your class, but also throughout the whole health class. So let me show you how one teacher used this. I think it's from a community group in Frederick County that then shared this with some of the teachers in Frederick County. And when I was emailing with his one teacher, this was at the bottom of the email address and it was great, popped up every single time. And I know it may feel repetitive, but boy, is that a simple way to just give out some 1-800 numbers, to give out some websites, just to repeatedly make sure that you're connecting young people to those community resources, because we know that that is really, really critical to do to support young people, just like we would when we're in a school and we connect them with the school counselor or the social worker, maybe there's a school-based health center. So all of those things are really, really important. So great. I see Brian is saying that a lot of these teachers are getting this from their mental health specialists in his county in particular. That's wonderful. So let's pause here and get some reactions from the group. I know that Brittany and I together have gone through lots of information relatively quickly. I appreciate folks that have been posting in the chat. And I also want to recognize that some of you have not posted in the chat, which is fine for lots of reasons. But if you're not competitive like me, different from Brittany, and you may be like, I can't type that fast. I wanted to just take a pause and allow people a chance to react to any of this information. We'll be doing more formal Q&A in just a couple of minutes. So know if you've got a burning question, we'll be happy to come back to that. But any reactions to the architecture, the rationale, some of the interactivity, any of the section on answering difficult questions before we move ahead? I always like to just pause, like my moment of Zen, and allow folks to react. And if you don't have necessarily a comment you want to put in, go ahead and find your reaction button at the bottom. Thank you, Allison, for that feedback. I'm so glad it's helpful. And give me a reaction on the participant list, because I'd love to just see real quickly how this is working for folks. So give me one of those reactions that you can find at the bottom. You should have a variety of emojis to check, and let's just see how folks are feeling. So great, I'm seeing some thumbs up, which is awesome. And so I'm seeing some people like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What are these emojis you speak of? I will stick something in the chat box, which is great too. Thank you for the smiley. Ooh, a round of applause from Amy. Thank you so much. Great, another thumbs up I'm seeing. This is awesome. So again, just showing you another way that you can use, if you're able to use Zoom, right? So like me, I'd just be doing the smiley face with the, you know, the colon and the comma, all that good stuff. So whatever works for you is great, just to get some quick feedback. And in that vein, we wanted to recognize that you all are advanced adult learners. I'm guessing many of you have taught for many years and, you know, have this content under your belt, which is fantastic. We wanted to ask you now to kind of take a step back and think about, Brittany and I have been doing our best to try to walk the talk of being interactive during our time together today. And we'd love for you to just think and reflect back on today's session, just the last hour and 10 minutes. And what have you noticed that we have been doing for you all as our group of learners to try to make sure to maximize interactivity? We've tried to do a whole variety of things to try to meet a whole range of learning styles. And we'd love to kind of see what stands out for you. So folks are recognizing the breakout rooms that were really helpful, pausing for questions to make sure to like literally take a break, validating contributions and participation, the poll that we did at the very beginning, that was something a little bit different, making sure that we ask folks to find the chat box, respond in the chat box, checking in terms of, you know, in the small groups, checking in to see what support people need. The positive energy, thank you. We were trying, you know. But that's enthusiasm, right, as people are recognizing, asking questions, right. So really giving folks a link to a Google Doc, taking a picture. We're really, I know it might have seemed a little like frantic and overwhelming, but we are trying our best to kind of model how just in 70 minutes, and I know your classes are probably even a little bit shorter than that, you can use a number of techniques to try to engage your learners in a variety of ways. No one was forced to do anything intentionally. Obviously, we're really just trying in gentle in a variety of ways to help people kind of connect with the information, connect with each other, make sure that we can really support each other as we're all kind of learning and considering all these new big issues and smaller ones as well. So then lastly, we want to give you a couple of resources, and I have been keeping copious notes with all the great stuff that folks have been suggesting in the chat box. So never fear, that will come back to you in a way that's all condensed kind of in a 1 or 2 pager. We are currently designing that at Advocates, and we'll share that back with you hopefully by Monday. That's my hope. And one of the things that we created at Advocates for Youth for folks who are utilizing our Rights, Respect, Responsibility curriculum, we did this last spring, is we were able to very quickly, and it's not, you know, the most ideal, but it's something, create Google Classrooms for 3 different grade bands. So we took 10 to 11 lesson plans for each of grades 5, 6, grade 8, and grade high school, which most people teach around grade 9, but I know some people teach at different grade levels. We just took 10 or 11 lesson plans and put them each into their own unique Google Classroom. And then we're inviting teachers to join as teachers, not as students, so that you all can make a copy of the classroom and then adapt it and edit it as you want to. You may find that some of the ways that we've truncated the lessons from obviously their full 50 minutes down to about 20 to 25 minutes, because that's best practices for online learning. Maybe that doesn't work for your students. Maybe you have some of these other fabulous ways that people have been chatting about that you'd like to use instead. It's really just a starting point, but we invite you, if we can go to the next slide, I want to show you how you can sign up if this is something you even just want to look at. If you just go to our 3Rs website, which is just literally the number 3, the letter R, the letter S, 3Rs.org. This is the page that you'll find if you hit the curriculum button there. And then at the bottom, what you'll see is the second arrow shows you where to hit for the Google Classroom. It's just a quick little form. And then I am batching people into the classroom pretty much every 24 hours. We're up to about 1,700 teachers have asked for access to this. So again, make it your own, make a copy, edit it, use some of it, use none of it, use it as an example or not at all. But we just wanted to make that available to you. So knowing that we have about 15 minutes left, our timing is working great because we wanted to save some time because we know that there's no way that we could have ever gotten to all the questions that you have. So we wanted to leave a good amount of time at the end to make sure to address questions or situations. We've got lots of smart people in the room, folks from the state departments of education and of a few different states. We've got folks that are supervisors, educators, people that do tech every day, all day, have never done tech. So there's a lot of folks here who can lend their wisdom. So feel free, if you want, to either type a question into the chat box if you have one, or if it's a longer question or a scenario and you'd rather take yourself off mute, you're welcome to do that as well. And we'll spend the remaining time kind of taking some questions and answers. And while folks are gathering their thoughts, I just wanted to also mention that during registration, you had an opportunity to enter in some questions that you have. We know we didn't get to all of them, so we are also creating a follow-up Q&A document so that we can respond to all the questions that people submitted. We got to some of them, but not all of them, so that will be a follow-up piece that we will get to you as well. So any resources, tips on sharing info with parents or allowing them to see instructional materials virtually? Great, great question. So I'll start, and then Brittany, I'd love your thoughts on this as well. I know that it's really important to be transparent with parents. We always try to make sure that anything we're doing with students, parents have an opportunity to take a look at. So that may be sharing with them any of the virtual things that you're going to be doing, if you've translated any of your worksheets, if you're going to be using different video clips, if you're going to be having them do stuff synchronously or asynchronously, trying to put it in maybe a Google folder would be easier. Maybe your district has a file sharing platform you can use. I know people created for the Google Classroom a parent only version where they could just view stuff and not edit anything, and so they could preview all of it. So any way that you can to try to really interact with parents and give them full access to anything that you might be creating, we would definitely recommend. What else, Brittany? Other ideas to add to that one?
Yeah, I would, in that folder, maybe even, I've seen some people chatting in here like they did a presentation over the summer just to kind of like get people acquainted to what's happening. I record those, and then I can really just get all of the content out because I'm sure that there's a lot of questions, record it, put it on a file, and then give them access like, here's the recording and all the materials. Have fun. Let us know if you have any questions. And then I saw another question in here, which is super key, where it was like, great energy, how do we keep this for all 5 days? That is the fountain of youth, right? And I will be the first to admit, like, I gear myself up for these, and then I like need to go and sit by myself for like 2 days afterwards. So I totally resonate with that. I think the way to keep myself energized is I don't take out all of my like fun, engaging things for every single lesson. So trying to space them out as much as I can, I think kind of breathes new life when I can be like, okay, we have something fun and exciting and new to play with today. So really being strategic about all of those really fun, cool tools and all of the great stuff you already shared in your chat box.
Awesome. Someone was giving a shout out to amaze.org, which we appreciate. And I'll just let you know, in the Google Classroom, we relied a lot on the amaze.org videos, those free. We have over 100 now, videos that are available mostly for 10 to 14. We found them like 4th grade through 9th grade but check those out if they're helpful. And Brittany, here's another question for us. Someone talking about their health class that's really kind of gotten pared down in a virtual setting, really down to like 1 or 2 big topics each, and just wanting suggestions about how to prioritize for sex education. So thoughts on that one?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and something that we've been thinking about, especially with this being an issue everywhere. So for some of you, you might have this document. It's massive and overwhelming, called a scope and sequence, that tells you what to teach, when to teach it. For the curricula that you use, you might also have a document that kind of prioritizes, like if you only have a week, a month, a day, 10 minutes, look at these lessons in particular. So check in with the curricula that you're using. I know that for the 3 Rs, we do provide those kinds of things and are continuing to provide some suggestions on what to do with very limited time. Otherwise, you are the expert. You are the person in your district who knows your students best. And I encourage you to truly like trust yourself, to do the research and figure out what's the content that they most need. If you're a data nerd like me, and I'm a self-proclaimed excited one, I will sometimes go and use data to drive those decisions for me. So if I have YRBS data through the CDC that kind of surveys all of the young people and kind of finding, okay, they're not doing so great with understanding maybe how to use condoms, that might be a lesson that I want to prioritize. So use data, trust yourself, and then look at your curricula and see if they have any suggestions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely prioritize connecting young people to resources that they can access in person, if not like telemedicine, because we know that young people really need some supports as they're navigating all of this on their own, which we would generally be able to provide in person, but can't do that. So really making sure you have some way to disseminate resources, and as a follow-up to all the great suggestions that Brittany has. And I see some folks posting back about the parent conversation, I think what Brittany mentioned about the opportunity to create a Zoom and to record it. It also provides, good opportunity to create stuff just for parents. I know that over the summer in the Amaze project, we created a toolkit for parents about talking to your kids about pornography, recognizing that more young people are online and they get pop-ups and they're searching, and all of a sudden they find stuff they weren't necessarily looking for, or maybe they were. So it can also be a great opportunity to try to take some of the existing resources or create new ones for parents who may be really interested in talking with their kids about some of these issues and just have no idea how to get this started. And so Erin's asking, what is YRBS data? So my data nerd, you want to fill in?
Yeah, I just sent Erin a message and then I was like, I probably should have put that in the main group. This is just CDC data that's collected every couple of years. It's youth risk sexual behavior data. And these, you might have district data around that, you might not. Some states opt in and some opt out, but it just provides very specific data around sexual behaviors with your area in particular. And you can find that on the CDC website if you Google that.
Great. And Leah,
and I saw another question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say Leah is posting some specific Maryland data as well, and links to how to find that for YRBS data in Maryland. And yeah, we did have another question in here about what if our county requires us to record the Zoom meetings? What do we do about student privacy if that's the case? Ooh, that's a tough one. Any thoughts off the top of your head, Brittany, on that one? Oy.
I know. Like, oh goodness.
Oh.
Required recordings. I think it's all about disclosing that as much as possible. And I tend to forget to disclose that the meeting needs to be recorded. So if you go to your Zoom settings, there is a feature that will automatically record all of your meetings, which is one less thing for you to remember, but then they will also announce to everyone as they join the meeting that it's being recorded. So any student who joins whenever they start will get that automated message that the meeting is being recorded. And then I would also use it as an opportunity to include it in our group norms, just as a reminder, these meetings are being recorded just so that there's transparency, because we definitely want to build and continue to amplify that trust with our young people.
That's great. And Brian's just adding in that in his district, they're allowing students to turn off cameras and microphones during sessions that are being recorded. So again, I think it's just about communication. I would definitely advocate within your district for why sexual health classes should not be recorded. If you're still not able to get them to overturn that idea, all of Brittany's suggestions and Brian's as well about being as transparent as possible, I think are super critical. And Elizabeth is amazing and works for the state health department, I think, and is offering to send people county specific YRBS data related to sexual health. So holy cow, take her up on that offer. That would be super helpful, and may really help you kind of clarify where to start when you don't have enough time to cover it all, but you know that young people need a lot of information. So Lots of great ideas. We will pause here and share our contact information. Obviously, if after today you want to get in touch with us or shoot us an email, or we can be a thought partner for you on any of this stuff, this is how to reach both of us at our advocates email address. We will be following up with a bunch of things that you'll get through Brian and on the Maryland SHAPE website in terms of the one-pager we talked about, the slides today, the recording as well. So look for all those goodies doing it. And Brittany, any last thoughts before I turn it back to Brian?
You all are just amazing. I'm so happy that we could join you today. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was our pleasure to be with you. We're happy to support you. Thanks for all you do for young people. You're really making such a difference, even though some days it may not feel like that, but you absolutely are. So we really, really appreciate you. So back over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Brittany and Nora. That was phenomenal. You shared a lot of great resources. You implemented a lot of great resources inside of your information. Thank you so much. We couldn't appreciate it more. I am.
Brian, you may be mic'd, unmiked.
I just muted myself. I apologize. There is a link for a certificate of participation. For those of you who have participated in our previous sessions, this is a little bit different. We have a little bit more detailed questions that we are asking feedback on. So we're asking that you please complete that, give us some specific feedback for Nora and Brittany as well. And then after you complete that, click submit. You will be getting your PDF certificate of participations for today's 90-minute webinar. Just as a reminder, we hope to have this recording and the slides posted on our website today or tomorrow. And then as soon as we have the Q&A sheet, we will be able to send that out to everybody as well. So thank you so much. And again, if you have not been a part of SHAPE Maryland, again, my name is Brian Griffith. I'm the SHAPE Maryland Executive Director, and I appreciate everyone being a part of this. Thank you so much, and thank you to Nora and Brittany. So thank you. Have a great day.